As a child of a narcissistic parent, you do not get to experience childhood at all. You have to grow up very quickly to become the mediator, the buffer, the conflict resolver, the savior, and the survivor all at once. You lose your innocence, you lose that spirit of being a child. You do not get to experience the joy, the happiness of growing each day and exploring the world around you. You get stuck in a survival mode that never ends. You're forced to stay hyper-vigilant, hyper-conscious, and hyper-attuned to your environment all the time because there is always something happening in the dysfunctional family you are a part of. Consequently, you never get to experience the joy of being a child. The narcissistic parent robs you of your childhood. Hi, I am Danish, a narcissistic abuse recovery professional. Today in this episode, we are going to understand how a narcissistic parent steals your childhood. If that resonates with you and you want to learn more, please make sure to subscribe before we begin. Because as I always say, your subscription to the channel helps in spreading awareness about narcissistic abuse. Let's get started with watching a small video clip that will lay the foundation for what is to come later in today's episode. As a child of a narcissist, you have to grow up very quickly. You have to become wiser than your age. You have to become extremely attuned to the environment. You are parentified. You have to become the mediator. You have to become the protector of your siblings. Basically, you have to forget you are a child and leave it behind, taking responsibilities that you are not prepared for. People now tell you, you're really wise for your years, for your age. But they do not know what has gotten you there, how much you have suffered and what you have struggled with and what you have lost in your childhood because you never got to live that innocence. If you are a child who was parentified, who had to grow up very quickly, you should be proud of yourself. Talking about parentification, with a narcissistic parent, you become their parent, which just means the roles are reversed. You are forced to fulfill their needs. You become their therapist, the one who takes care of them, who uplifts their ego. And in the process of doing so, you go through a major loss, the loss of self. You forget yourself. And not only that, you believe that you do not matter. You believe your needs are too much to ask for. You cannot focus on yourself because if you did so, then you will be selfish. The narcissistic parent instills that belief in you. The moment you try to live your innocence, the moment you try to enjoy your childhood, the moment you try to be who you are, which is just a child, you are guilt-tripped into obeying them. You are forced to leave everything behind and just to live for the narcissist. Because to them, you are nothing but an extension. They unload and unburden everything on you without caring if you have the capacity to take any of that. They just use you like a punching bag. They see you as a thing they have created and they feel entitled to treat you however they want to. You do not have any identity in their eyes. They do not respect you. So you are forced to grow up and leave everything behind for them. Parentification is followed by adultification, which just means you're forced to grow up very quickly. You look very mature for your age because you have been forced to think in terms your brain is not ready to think in. Your brain wants to explore the world, but the trauma in the family is so adverse and so extreme that it has activated extreme survival mechanisms in you that has forced you to turn into an adult-like child who just is focused on surviving. I hope that makes sense. You also feel responsible for your siblings. You feel responsible for suppressing the conflict. All of this takes me back to my own childhood. I never used to feel like other children around me because they would laugh, they would play with each other, they would just enjoy their time. But I felt restricted and I thought I was shy. People thought I was conserved or I didn't want to get along with other children. Of course not. That was not the case. I thought I don't have that liberty because, yeah, I might open up here, I might play, but what about when I go back home? I'll have to tense up again. I'll have to face the same thing again. I have to be prepared for that. I can't let go of it. I am made for that, not this. Were you parentified and adultified as well? If yes, let me know in the comments. Let me know what your experiences have been and help other survivors feel less isolated in their recovery. This parentification and adultification in combination results in traumatization. All those codependent patterns that you know of, people pleasing, sacrificing yourself for others, sabotaging yourself, not knowing what your needs and wants are, those are not the actual issues. The root cause is the trauma, the abandonment, and the neglect. Because what is parentification essentially? It is a form of neglect. The parent does not care for you. Instead, they shape the environment in such a way to make you care for them. As I said in the beginning, the roles are reversed, and that impairs your psychological and social development as a child. If you have been through something like this, a major part of your healing journey has to be homecoming, coming back to yourself. You have to grow because back then you got developmentally stuck. You couldn't turn into an adult. Somewhere you lost yourself, and that is what you have to find now. You have to come back to yourself. You have to know who you are and what you are. The third thing a narcissistic parent does to destroy your potential is called infantilization. They treat you like a child no matter what your biological age is. They always make you feel you won't be able to do that. You're not capable of doing that. If you were to do that, you'll always fail. So you feel like a failure always, and then you blame yourself because they also blame you. They first put those thoughts in your head. They convince you you're not capable enough to accomplish a certain job. They create that insecurity in you. But then they are the ones who shame you for being that way. This is crazy because they cause the harm and then they blame you for acting that way, completely denying the fact that they have been the ones sending that message across all along, programming you to function that way. This is how cruel they are. As a result of infantilization, you always feel you are too young for life, or life is too complicated for you. You do not know how to deal with the different affairs of life. You feel incompetent. You feel disconnected. The world does not make sense to you. You feel like an alien when you go out with others. You do not know how to talk about your career and other stuff, and that is because of this infantilization. You might wonder, why does a narcissistic parent has to infantilize their child? Well, to feel superior, to feel powerful. By making you feel like a child, they feel they are an adult who knows it all, who is more experienced than you, and who is better than you, basically. I remember my father would always do that. As a child, whenever I wanted to try something new, do a new activity, he would come in and take that new thing away from my hands or stop me from doing it, and then would laugh at me saying, you won't be able to do that. It wasn't a concern out of being my father, of course not. He never gave me a chance and then blamed me, always criticized me for not going out, for not doing this and for not doing that and for not trying and so on. And he was the one who would cripple me every single time I would make the efforts to grow. That is how crazy they are. Were you infantilized as well? If yes, drop your experiences in comments as well. The fourth and the final thing they do is spousification. They treat you like their spouse. There can be real physical incest or emotional incest. Both possibilities are there, but in both cases, they take over you, they engulf you, and you feel so uncomfortable in yourself because you know you're supposed to see them as a parent. You're supposed to feel a certain way towards them, and there are supposed to be certain boundaries, but you feel like you're being treated differently. There are no boundaries. They say things to you that are very uncomfortable to hear, that they shouldn't be sharing with you. The emotional demand created is a mismatch because you are a child they are supposed to nurture you, but the things they say, the things they ask for, create this unconscious and unsaid subtle demand for you to cater to their needs and treat them as if they are your partner. Spousification also leads to a major loss of identity because you do not know how you're supposed to see yourself and what role you're supposed to play in their life. If you were spousified, the key to healing that is separating yourself completely from the narcissistic parent and then finding yourself. Whether it is through parentification, adultification, infantilization, or spousification, a narcissistic parent steals your childhood in all ways possible and imaginable because they think they own you and you were created only to serve their ego. If you have been through any of this, please heal yourself by recognizing how abnormal all of that was and then work on your core wounds because that is your responsibility now. What has happened in the past, and now you can heal it through your compassionate and radical acceptance of yourself. That was it for today's episode. Let's bring it to an end here, and I'll talk with you in the next one. Until then, let the healing begin and continue.